One of the most important lessons I've learned in my short 24 years of life is that arguing with people is pointless. Now, us as human beings, we have this need where we want people to understand what we mean, understand what we say, and we want them to understand why we did something, why we came to a certain conclusion, why we made certain decisions. But when we try to have other people understand us, we're basically trying to have other people understand the way our mind works, and that's really not possible most of the time. It's really not. So that's why so many arguments are that's why so many arguments happen. That's why people go through back and forths with each other. And this is also why things on an even bigger scale, like war and political conflict, happen. We're just not going to understand the way other people are wired. We're not going to understand the way other people, the way their mind comes to conclusions and decisions. And whether it be micro or macro, minor things or significant things, I've completely just stopped trying to have other people try to understand me. Growing up with my parents and my siblings, I have 3 other siblings. I can't even count the amount of times where I did something and they were like, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that, tragic reality?" And I kind of thought about this really deeply, but any question that starts with like, "Why did you?" Like, "Why did you do this? Why did you do that?" Do you know what I think about these questions? I think they're pointless because when they say, "Why did you do something?" it means that you already did that thing. And that means that what's done is already done. So the way I work now, the way my mind works now, it is what it is. That's my favorite phrase. My mind has latched onto that phrase. And whenever people ask, "Why did you do something?" that's the first thing I say. It is what it is. I used to try to explain why I did it, but what's the point? Why are we going through a back and forth and arguing about something that's already done? Why? And, this happens so many times. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's something that's minor or significant. Anytime someone asks me, "Why did you do it?" I'm like, "Why are you asking me?" What's done is done. Like, what's the point of having this discussion? And this whole phrase of "it is what it is," I really do love this phrase because it keeps me from dwelling on the past. Now, I'm a guy that doesn't like to start conflicts. I'm a guy that doesn't really like to argue with people. And, even if people inconvenience me, I don't want to argue with them. I don't. And I'll give you guys an example. So, I was taking a bus to work like a few weeks ago, like I always do. And there's this guy that was moving around on the bus, and I was standing because there was no seats. And he accidentally knocked over my phone as I was using it. And, I didn't really think much of it. I mean, my phone kind of got sent flying across the bus. I picked it up, and I went back to where I was. And he didn't say anything. He didn't apologize. He didn't say anything. And I just continued doing what I was doing. I didn't really think too much of it. And then some guy was like, he said, "You're just going to let him do that and not say anything?" And I'm like, it is what it is. That's all I said. It is what it is. Because think about it. Why would I get engaged into an argument with a complete and utter stranger? Yes, he did inconvenience me. Yes, that was kind of annoying how he did that, and yes, he didn't say sorry as well, but I don't care because I don't think in the short term. I think long term. The moment I get off this bus, I'm never going to see this dude again. This is a metropolitan city of over 6 million people. So the chances of me seeing him again is pretty much, non-existent. So the guy that asked me, "Oh, you're just going to let him do that? You're just not going to say anything about it?" If that guy did it to him, if he was in my position, here's what would happen. He would get into a conflict that is completely pointless. And they would escalate. And then things could take a dramatic turn. Why do that when you can just go back to what you were doing and, just go about your day? Why? Why would you waste your time arguing with people? I stayed silent, and the results, nothing happened. And let me give you guys another example. My brother was actually ranting to me the other day. He was complaining about how the hospital, he was trying to get a doctor's appointment, and they kind of like messed up with his scheduling. I don't really know the details, I kind of forgot, but basically, he was arguing with him over the phone, and he was telling me this. I didn't really hear him arguing with him over the phone, but he told me later on, yeah, I was arguing with him over the phone. I'm like, why? I'm like, why are you doing that? They messed up with your scheduling, but they were like, we're going to reschedule your appointment. So, yeah, they inconvenienced you, but what good is it to continue arguing with them and yapping over the phone? What good is it? That's exactly what I said to him. And he said, they disrespected me. I gotta show them who's right. And, I kind of spiraled in that moment because I'm just like, this is my brother, I've known him my entire life, but I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to be around people who just don't match my values. Even if that means my brother, because I was just thinking like, why? Why are you arguing? Why are you arguing with them over this? Yes, they inconvenienced you. They apologized. So why are you continuing to arguing with them over the phone? Like, what's done is done, right? It is what it is. I mean, I've had that same situation happen to me numerous times. I'm not going to sit there on the phone and just whine and complain. It is what it is. It's done. But he's like, I gotta show him who's right. Okay. And when it comes to arguing with people in general, I used to actually enjoy arguing with people. And when I say arguing, I mean debating, not just flat out insulting people, which many of my haters tend to do. Hence why I banned them. But I feel like arguing with people and debating with people has just gotten more and more pointless over time. And I'll just use my comments section as an example. I've been having debates with people over the past year and a half. I've been making videos, I've been engaging in discussion. But sometimes I just make a point and then it just flies over these people's heads. And it's like it's such a clear and concise argument as well. Like, they could say something and then I'll reply back completely dismantling their argument. But they'll never actually admit that they lost, that, their argument got dismantled. They'll never actually admit it. So I really thought about this, and this is why I just don't really do this anymore on my comment section, or at least I rarely do. But what's the point, man? Like, what's the point? And the thing about debates is that I'm a kind of guy that where if someone makes a good point, I can concede. I can be like, okay, you made a good point. But most people don't operate that way, because arguing with people, it's not about actually exchanging ideals most of the time. It's not about, trying to convince people, or, they don't even want to be convinced at all. They just want to keep being like, okay, I'm right, you're wrong. Even if you make the best possible argument, they're just not going to admit they're wrong. So I was like, what value am I getting out of this? And nothing. I'm not getting anything out of it, man. Nothing. This is why I just banned these people that try to argue with me in my comment section, because most of the time you can tell by the tone of the way they talk that they're not really here for intelligent discussion. They're not. Especially if they use emojis or, just weak grammar. People like that aren't really, interested in intelligent discussion. So, and the thing is, it's very easy to tell who actually is interested in intelligent discussion and who isn't. It's actually very easy to tell. And the ones that are interested, they don't make their arguments in a hostile manner. They don't make it in a condescending manner. And those are the people I actually enjoy, discussing things with the most. And people like that, you can actually have a decent back and forth conversation with, but most people you just can't do that. Most people they're just so adamant on I'm right, you're wrong. And I'm just tired of it, man. I'm just tired of it, man. Explaining myself to people, trying to argue with people, it's perhaps the biggest waste of time. Hands down, the biggest waste of time. And the way I view it now, I have my beliefs. If I don't really care to have people convince me why I believe what I do, especially since a lot of the things I say on my channel, it's not even really something you could argue with me about, to be honest. It's really not. For example, last video where I talked about how ChatGPT, it's a better tool for communication and understanding compared to talking to most people. People are trying to argue with me about that. And I'm like, well, what's the point exactly? This is a conclusion I came to based off of my experiences and wiring. You can't convince me otherwise. The only person in this case that can convince me otherwise is myself. If I have an experience with a human being that changes my perspective, then yeah, that can actually change my mind. But you coming up on here and telling me, oh, but human beings are this and that and they give you this, I don't care about all that nonsense, man. Like, people just try to argue with me about things that can't really be argued about, and it's kind of absurd. And actually, I'm gonna give you guys another example. I made a community post where I said, if you're under the age of 18, get out, unsubscribe, and please don't watch my videos until you turn 18. And people legit were trying to argue with me about that. And I'm like, wait, that makes no sense. People are actually trying to argue with me about why I don't want children on my channel, a channel where we discuss themes that only, mainly adults can comprehend. Now, here's the thing. Let me actually explain this to you guys a bit more. The reason why I don't want kids and children on my channel is because they just parrot ideas that they hear other people say, but they don't actually feel the depth and the heaviness of these ideas. Life is pointless. That's a phrase that any 15-year-old can say. But you don't really feel it until you actually experience a little bit of life. And that's primarily when you enter this game called life, when you realize you're inside of this game. If you're someone that's just in high school or middle school playing video games and you haven't really experienced life, then I'm not saying I don't care about your opinion, but how do I even explain this? It just doesn't mean as much to me. You know what I mean? Like, there's like 12-year-olds that were commenting on my channel talking about, oh, money is the root of all evil. It's like, dude, you're 12 years old. You're 12 years old. You've never actually started this game where you actually have to, where you're forced to make money to survive. You haven't really seen the absurdity. You're only just parroting it, but you haven't actually felt the absurdity. Do you guys know what I mean? So when people are trying to argue with me about this, and I had to ban so many of them from my last community post, I just came to the conclusion that these were children, and I just banned them, because what kind of adult that actually feels the heaviness of life, that's actually experienced life and has gone through an awakening where he's like, okay, yeah, this is a game. Why would he be arguing about this with me, right? So it has to be kids. It has to be. I just simply don't think that a child that's under the age of 18 can understand the things that I talk about on this channel. I don't think it's even possible for pretty much most of them to be so far zoomed out to the point where a life feels like a stage, like a scripted play. I don't think they're even capable of doing that. And I mean, not all of them. Some of them actually, some of them are awakened, I admit, but I highly doubt the awakened ones are here. I think most of them are just children that are just parroting what the grown-ups say. So I don't want kids on my channel. That's it. And and one other thing I want to talk about is my entire channel as a whole. My entire channel is basically me trying to explain my experience with life and my perspectives, my worldviews. And a lot of people try to argue with me about my worldviews. And as I said before, it's kind of absurd because this is something that I came to these conclusions based off of my experiences and my psychological wiring. So it doesn't really feel like something that could be argued because it's just my worldview. You can't change my worldview. And here's the thing, I don't really care about who understands me or not. If I make a video and no one understands what I actually mean in that video, because, you know how some things that you just have in your head, but you can't really quite articulate it, but you try to explain it, and you try to explain it to other people, but it just doesn't quite work out. That's me a lot of the times, but I don't care about that. I don't care. I don't care if no one understands me. I haven't had people say tragic reality. People missed the point of this video, but I feel you. Thank you. Thank you very much, but I don't really care. I don't care if people misunderstand me. The only reason I have this channel at this point is because it's the least annoying way to make money. That's it. That's it. And I don't want to make a YouTube channel where I talk about things that don't truly matter to me. I've always wanted to have a YouTube channel. I always did. But when I actually thought about what I do, I'm like, wait, I don't really have that many hobbies. I mean, I like music, but I'm not going to make a channel about music. I like skateboarding, but I'm not good enough to have a channel about skateboarding. So, I was like, all right, since I don't really care about all of that extra stuff, since I don't really care, then I'm going to just make videos talking about my worldview. We'll see how that goes. And a year and a half later, here I am at 13,000 subscribers. And I even had one guy tell me, oh, you're promoting Doom content. You're promoting Doom. I'm like, I'm not promoting anything, bro. I'm not. And if you actually think about the things I say on my channel, how am I promoting? I'm not promoting Doom. The heck are you talking about? The things I say on my channel are things that people have been saying for centuries. This world is a stage. This world is a play. How is that Doom? And one guy even told me, you're promoting, I'm not going to be able to say this word, but he said you're promoting you guys know what I mean, self-neutralization. I'm not going to actually say it. And I was actually kind of shocked when someone accused me of doing that. In what world am I actually promoting that? In what world? Look at my videos. I mean, just think about my videos. I talk about how this world is absurd. I talk about how this world is a stage. This world is a play. This world is just a script. Everything is a script. I talk about how human interaction is flawed. I talk about the illusions of modern life. Well, not just modern life, just life in general. I talk about the absurdity of being born into a system, a game, into a random piece of flesh. And somehow people are twisting that into saying you're promoting neutralization. Does that make any sense whatsoever, guys? Seriously? And the thing is, there is no correlation whatsoever. I'm criticizing the system. I'm criticizing the structures of this world. I'm not saying, guys, go do this. What the heck? If anything, I'd recommend people to actually just make videos, complain about this just like I do. But, I'm done explaining myself to people. I don't really have a need to do that anymore. People can believe what they want. And thank God YouTube added this hide user from channel feature. Because I came to a point where I was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to argue with trolls and, these idiots anymore. So the moment they comment on my page, the moment they say anything stupid, I'm just going to click hide user from channel and boom, there you go. They're gone. And don't get me wrong, you guys can still comment. For all of you trolls out there, you guys can still comment. Except no one can see it. You're the only one, you can only talk to yourself at that point. You're shouting into the void. And I've had numerous people try to, evade the ban. They tried to make new accounts. And they were like, you banned me. What are you talking about, bro? You hate me so much. Why do you want to talk to me? Why do you want my attention? It doesn't make sense. I don't really feel the need to argue with you trolls. So it's like it's just so absurd to me how people can make how people are willing to make new accounts or just use alt accounts just to comment on my page. How are you that attached to me? How? And you can tell their feelings are hurt because, if you were a normal person, you'd just be like, all right, I'm banned, whatever. I don't like this guy, but all right, I'm cool with that. And you would move on and never be here again. But no, you came back to my channel and you're making new accounts to troll. Like, this is what I mean, man. I just can't stand most people. People are just stupid. But that's fine. I've learned to accept that. I've learned to just stop caring about it. People are always going to be stupid. That's just the way humanity is, bro. So I'm going to just do what I need to do. I'm going to make my money. I'm going to make that bread and just keep doing what I do. And, the funniest part is when people say unsubscribed. This one always just kind of like made me laugh. It didn't even, it's like, what are you doing, bro? Why do you have to announce to the world that you're unsubscribing? No one, first of all, no one even knows who you are. No one knows who you are at all. Most of these people that say this, I don't even recognize them. They're like, unsubscribed. World, pay attention to me. I unsubscribed from Tragic Reality. All right, cool. Then you can just get banned. Man. But yeah, I'm done. That was just a minor rant. But yeah, overall, I'm just done with arguing with people. People are just not worth the effort, man. Stop arguing with people. Silence is the answer. Stop trying to have people understand your viewpoint. Just stop, bro. Just stop. And for all the YouTubers in my space that make videos like this where they just express their worldviews, stop arguing with these people, bro. Do not argue with trolls. And not even just trolls, just don't even argue at all, because arguing is pointless. It really is, man. I wasted so much time arguing with people. And for what? When you actually think about most arguments you get into, at the end of the day, no one actually admits anything. There is no one that ever says, you were right, actually, man. None. I can count the amount of, out of all the arguments I've ever been in my entire life, I can count on one hand the amount of times someone actually said, you were actually right. And heck, most of the time it was me. It was me. It's because people, it's just so odd to me the way arguments work. It's like losing an argument is why is it such a huge nightmare to a lot of people? Why? Is it really that big of a deal? I mean, half these people you argue with, you're never going to see them again. Is it really that big of a deal, man? Just admit that you lost, man, or admit something. But no. We live in a world where, admitting defeat, admitting that someone made a good point. We live in a world where that destroys your entire confidence, and, I can't have that. That's going to ruin my self-esteem. I need to win this argument, man. My life depends on it. If I don't win this argument, then I'm cooked, man. My life is over. The stupidity of human beings just never ceases to amaze me.